hello good people of the internet, it's I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo Woo. And in this episode, what I want to talk about is the fact that I seem to be a victimaholic. So hello and welcome to another graveyard. It probably doesn't look too much like a graveyard because where I'm in is in the old church. So it's all this lovely kind of old walls and vines and stuff that's growing around it. This is back out in Faughard. I've done videos here before where I've talked about the king who's buried just over there, and the St. Bridget shrine with the wishing tree, which is over there. And it's been a while since I came out and had a video done out in the open since I moved into the office, and I was looking at some videos from last year, and I said, oh, maybe I'll go out and see what the world is like for a change. So listen, this is what I want to talk about in this video is a bit, I read some work I've been doing recently, so this is probably the monthly update type video. I was calling them vlogs, but that doesn't really work with the podcast element of it, because of course it's a podcast, not a vlog. I was calling it diary, I don't know, I'll come up with some name for it anyway. Just the update. So I'm still doing my therapy, and I'm finding that quite frustrating because it seems to be going nowhere. It seems to be, because it's EFT, which is emotionally focused therapy, so it's just focusing on emotions. But all that seems to be happening though is indulgence in these emotions. There's no kind of resolution to anything. It's kind of, I think the idea is that when you recognize these emotions, or you really feel them, or you describe them, and there's lots of describing how it feels and where on your body it is and all of this type of stuff. And while it's interesting, the kind of end of it is more or less just, and now we'll just put these emotions in a box and we'll leave them here for next week, which is just ludicrous. It's ridiculous. And I personally don't find helpful. I find ludicrous. Some people may be able to do that. Obviously people find that helpful because it's so prevalent, particularly in kind of new age workshop type stuff. Just put all your worries in a box. Turn the key in the box, hide it away, suppress that emotion for a week. But so I was talking to the therapist about it, and she's having none of it. Like, she said, no, it's all about recognizing your kind of emotions and these deep sea emotions and letting them come up. But it's like I'm saying to her, but that's just sustaining it, it's just dwelling in it, it's wallowing in it, it's there's nothing actionable about it. There's no kind of it's like opening up all of these kind of emotional feelings and then just kind of going, well, and see you next week. And it's just, I'm not finding it helpful at all, to the point that I kind of said to her, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And she started giving me different kind of things that maybe I could do, and but she suggests to keep at this. The other thing what I don't like about it is this chairs thing, which is, I've talked before, where you talk to an imaginary version of someone, and it could be, a relative or a friend or someone who in some way you felt has wronged you, or it could be an aspect of yourself. But what I don't find helpful about that is that I'm a type of person, if I have an issue or a problem with someone, I say it to them. So I can understand the utility of talking to a pretend version of someone who you feel there's unfinished business with, that you didn't get a chance to say these things. And but I don't understand saying it to people who you have talked about it, who you've argued in your head with years over after that, and why externalizing it. Well, you can understand that externalizing might do something, but it doesn't. That's not what the issue is. If talking to the person themselves didn't solve the issue, if arguing with them in the head for years didn't solve the issue, and if sitting and talking to a pretend chair version of them isn't solving the issue, I don't see why you should then continue to talk to chair people. So that whole Gestalt therapy, I don't know, as I say, I can understand the utility of it if, say, you didn't get a chance to say something to, your father before he died or something like that, but not when you have. But anyway, it's so what the change was, what the catalyst kind of was for understanding this kind of victim mentality thing that I've talked about numerous times before, but I crept back into that kind of habit, I suppose, or pendulum, or addiction. I started doing the Commune Russell Brand 12-step workshop thing that he had up for 2 weeks for free. You know, you could do the entire thing for free, and I think you can still get it for, it's like $100 or something like that. And I had read his book before, Recovery, so I kind of understand his approach, and I'm a big fan of Russell Brand. Like, I mean, I understand that people could find he's the most annoying person in the world, or I can understand that people think he's fake, or any of these things. I get all of that. I personally like him. I have a lot of time for him. I understand his foibles and his kind of, you know, the places where it falls apart for me, and I'm okay. That people don't have to be perfect. They don't have to, you know, have all the answers, all of these things, and certainly we're all flawed. So I don't understand why we can't accept that heroes or whatever. He's not a hero, but like the famous people, celebrities, whatever it is, spiritual masters. I doubt he'd like to be called a spiritual master. Maybe he would. Why they can't have flaws. But we've talked about this before in regards to, you know, different, you know, the separating the teaching from the teacher or the art from the artist. So it's gone through the 12-step things, and he approaches it not just for alcohol or gambling or drug addiction or sex addiction. It's for any kind of trait or thing in your life that is causing you problems. And it was amazing going through the different things. There's part of it is where you have to acknowledge all the wrongs you have done, and then, you know, the next bit is to make amends from. And what I realized in that is, in the entire time of doing the therapy, all the different sessions, all the different things, there was never once even an inkling of me taking any responsibility for everything. It was all externalization. It's all what other people did to me, what the world did to me, what existence was doing to me, how all of these things affected me, and no responsibility or no kind of even sense of my, you know, what my actions or my kind of wrongdoings, how that had affected it. It was all external. It's all blaming other people. And then I started really seeing how this EFT thing was just self-indulgence in victimhood. And that was kind of shocking to me in one way, because I had this clarity before about just how addictive the whole victimhood thing is for me a couple of years ago. And I just got back into the habit of, it just kind of took over my life again. And even though I'd mention it and I'd kind of be aware that I do it, I wasn't really doing being actionable about it. It's like someone who kind of give up smoking and then, you know, starts smoking again, but still kind of considers himself an ex-smoker. But you can go, but you're smoking loads. No, but it's not really. You know, it's just not that kind of responsibility or not kind of that realization even that what you're doing is in fact the thing you thought you'd solved years ago. You thought you'd give up smoking, but it turns out you haven't. And so just seeing this kind of victimhood, and what I mean by that is that I kind of allow myself to be defeated in a kind of a way, like a cozy, warm comfort blanket. And there's a kind of a, you know, when you have an argument with someone in your head and you kind of have this realization that, you know, what am I doing? Why am I arguing with this person in the head? But there's kind of that impulse to continue it, to indulge it, because there's a bit, you know, there's like an endorphin release, or there's a kind of a, you know, in the indulgence of it, there's an enjoyment. And it can kind of be an enjoyment in feeling miserable, or in feeling sad, or in blaming other people, or in, you know, just being down. And that's why I was addicted to this type of thing, where it was not taking responsibility for my actions, not taking responsibility for fixing my life, not taking responsibility for, you know, it was indulging in worry rather than doing something about it. It was, you know, looking at how people in my life had affected me, and had, you know, I kind of instilled thoughts, or where I had made false conclusions based on different relationships. But leaving it there, like kind of going, no, look what you did to me, rather than going, right, that happened. Let's stop acting on that. Let's stop having those beliefs. You know, get a bit of a firm hand into the whole thing, where you can go, that's crap behaviour, and it leads to terrible kind of distraught and depression and sadness and darkness, and even more so, there's this kind of thing where I use that then, because this became a realization that I use that in a way to manipulate people. And when I was young, this kind of have to go back to the story to tell this type of thing. There was this kind of feeling that got instilled in me due to certain circumstances, certain things, where that unless you were the best at something, then you didn't get attention or love, or you weren't, you know, it wasn't worth anything unless you were the best. So unless you were the best piano player, it didn't matter if you were second best. that the attention and the love and the admiration and all the accolades only went to the person. So there's a kind of then that feeling in me so I have this drive to be, of perfection and wanting to be the best at everything. But there's another thing that's going on, which is that in the realization that you can't be the best in anything, and if you're not, that you're not going to, that there's a chance you'll fail or whatever. And what I realized very early, that if I can get people to feel sorry for me, that I can also get love and attention and affection. Not quite the same, and it's a manipulation, and it's kind of it's just kind of a very kind of secondary, lesser, weaker version of what, the accolade or the love or the attention that, you're really seeking. But this is the best I can get. And so manipulating people and seeing this thing where I was kind of manipulating people into kind of feeling sorry for me. And there's a secondary thing of, oh, look what you've done to me, and that's to people and to the world and to, the greater kind of spiritual outlook. Look at what life has done to me. And horrifying to realise all this, especially considering I had realised it before. And again, go back to the smoking thing, it's like, it's the habit. It's, you have to work on it, or you'll get slowly sucked back into, I'll just have one cigarette, it'll be fine, one cigarette's fine. It's like, I'll just have one little kind of indulgence in wallowing in self-pity, it'll be fine. And it spirals, and it completely spirals, and then, you're back into the darkness of the darkness. Now, I'm not saying by any means that everyone who's sad, depressed, or has any sort of problems is indulging in victimhood and that thing. Certainly not. Only strictly speaking about myself, and it's me. And same with EFT. I don't think EFT in general is necessarily wallowing in self-pity and perpetuating kind of these habits and loops and recordings and to thing. It's what I was doing. It's certainly what my modus operandi within EFT was doing. And so realizing all that, and realizing that this is what I do, and if I treat my victimhood or my whatever, these habits, and of course it's more complicated than all, there's loads of other aspects of it, but this is the main thing I'm working on at the minute, that I can see that treating it as an addiction and applying the kind of 12-step kind of thing towards it, that do this, you'll get this result, make amends and you'll feel better. And I start doing the things, and I'm making amends for the different things I've done, and stop being so self-centered and that it's all about me. Start going, well, what have I done? What harm have I caused? And trying to fix some of that. And it's amazing. I noticed even in a couple of different things where I said sorry for things that I had done. Genuinely feel sorry. It's not that you're going around just saying sorry for the sake of doing it, to look it around, like genuinely feel sorry. And it's hard to do it, hard to own up for some of these, and some of the shame, the shame around it and all this. But how immediately after doing one in particular, my breathing, I noticed, I have not been breathing properly for years at all, and now I can breathe. And that's a huge change. And it was something that I was aware of that annoyed me, that, it was not something that I found, it wasn't something I obsessed with every day, but it would come up every now and again. So it's definitely in the back of my mind and all of these things. I'll talk about it some other time. The problem with talking about these is when it deals with other people, it's like the podcast I did years ago where it's just like, when is it my story to tell? It's my story in that it happened to me but it also affects other people. So while I'm very happy to be open and honest and forthright about all of these things, I'm not sure it's so fair on other people involved who might want to keep all their affairs private. So it's not that I'm avoiding talking about these things, it's just that kind of privacy. It's the other person who might necessarily want the story to be told on the internet to a lot of people. And so I got back then talking to my therapist, and I started saying this stuff to her, that it's victimhood and that all this is indulgence, and that I'm, it's habit and it's just loops and recordings, and it doesn't matter about, say, events that happened years ago, or that I tried to, these things that I have said to the people, argued with myself, we've done chairs about and all that I'm using them as a crutch to, to fuel the fires of this victim thing, because there's a way of it, I'd say, garnishing love and attention, but it's also to stop the realization that maybe I'm not as good as I think I am about certain things. So if I don't try, if I blame external forces for why I'm not able to do this thing, then I never have to come to the conclusion that I'm just not good enough. Now, I'll never know, because I allow some of these external factors or ideas or beliefs to stop me from, pursuing that goal. But once it's, it's potentiality, oh, well, I could have done that, but life is against me, so I wasn't able to. So there's never really kind of a test of whether I would fail or not. Lots of stuff going on that I'm still unpacking. But she was having none of it at all. She was saying I was being too harsh, I was being a critic, I should have compassion for myself, that the only way through all of this is to go through all the emotions, talk about all the different things when I was growing up and the different people and how I felt about that and where the emotions are in my body, and really, really look at these emotions and stuff. And my reply to her, a number of things, was that, which one do I start with? Which is that if you have a child, like if you have and are engaging in, what's the word? Let's say bad behaviour, but in unskillful behaviour, whatever, to stop them from doing that so that they learn how to, approach things better or thing, it is a compassionate thing to do. And it's, like to tell us, if you were just to sit around, let's say we have an issue with our weight and being overweight or whatever, and you can sit around and you can talk about how people have made you feel bad about being overweight, how that has affected your sense of self, how you have shame around it, how, there was all these different incidences where, you were afraid to go out, or, people said things to you, and you can talk about how diets didn't work for you, and all of these things, and all of that. And you can, till you're blue in the face, you can describe how that feels in your body, you can describe the emotion where it is, you can all of that. Or you can stick to your diet and lose the weight, and then it's not an issue. Same as if it was smoking, you can talk about how smoking is so bad and how it's made you feel, and how you've become now excluded from the world because you have to go outside, smoke and all that. Or you can give up smoking. And it's the compassion is in understanding where you're coming from and all of these things, but it's also the firm hand and going, stop the shitty bullshit behaviour. And she didn't like that. I was going, I need a firm hand and to stop indulging in these kind of horrible behaviours that may and did originally come from, say, other people or different things that happened when I was a kid and all that stuff. But that's over. And indulging the past and indulging all these, because I understand it. It's not that I don't understand. I can see where it came from. I can, I've talked to the person about it. I've done all of these things. So it's not that I'm avoiding any of these things, but further indulgence in it is strictly just indulging in it, I think. I hope this is making sense. It's kind of looping around in my head and stuff, and it's not possibly fully cooked or fully formed as yet, but it's getting there. But what I found, it's just it's like I feel like a new lease on life. I feel so good. I feel so light, and I feel hopeful, and I feel that, wow, I might be able to be fucking happy for once in my life. Once I catch all of these things, that my habits, my loops, these pendulums, these things that I use as crutches, these cozy blankets of poor meanness, and and just take more responsibility for my actions, my emotions, my thoughts, rather than trying to externalize them and place them in other things, rather than trying to see that the world or the universe is hostile to me. And if it is, it's irrelevant. It's my reaction to it. It's like, it's the bad thing can happen to two people, and people can have two different reactions to it. And I kind of have to look at myself as that, could someone have gone through all of the exact same issues that I have gone through, all the relationships, all the interactions, all these things, and come to a different conclusion than I have about it, that they wouldn't feel they were a victim of it? And I think they could. So therefore, it's just my ideas around it. Now, of course, I have had this clarity before, had it a number of years ago, and I let it go. So it's working on it and trying to see it as an addiction to these type of things, so that it's like cigarettes, like food, like alcohol, or whatever it is we can get addicted to catch it one day at a time, and when I find myself in the thing of doing it, to stop it, and so that it doesn't continue, and I don't fall back into a habit, that I don't have that occasional poor meanness just to indulge in it, just to get that bit of an endorphin release or whatever. But I feel really great, and I hope it does last. And I'm going back through the 12 steps again. I'm going to really work them, really do them hard, because only them kind of cursory kind of level, the big things. I'm going to go through all the different things. But I feel great, and I feel there's I don't know, like the word, I feel like a joy almost, or definitely a sense of relief that in the realising of all of this type of thing, and deburdened, and almost even like myself. So there you go. So that's it, good people of the internet. That's where I am. That's the update. Whether I continue with the therapy or not is to be undecided. The next one I'm going to be talking to the person who's running the overall study, the overall thing that I'm part of. So we'll see if it is just going to be a continuation of indulging in these kind of descriptions of emotions and wallowing in self-pity and no actionable things other than putting your emotions in a box and wait for next week, then I think it will be harmful for me to continue. But I don't know. I'm not going to make any decisions until I see what it is. But that's how it is. That's the update. That is where I'm at. So, good people of the internet, until our next adventure, be well.